The sensors screamed warnings across the bridge of the Vryn exploration vessel. Commander Jaltith stared at the display with all four of his eyes widening in disbelief. Something impossible floated in the darkness of the Kaldrith expanse, a region of space where nothing should exist. "Report," Jaltith commanded, his translator chip converting his clicks and whistles into standard galactic speech. "Sir, we're detecting a vessel," his navigator said, her voice trembling. "But the readings don't make sense. It's showing as both ancient and new. The quantum signature is wrong." Jaltith moved closer to the screen. The ship was massive, easily 10 kilometers long. Its hull was dark metal, scarred and pristine at the same time. Strange symbols covered its surface, markings he had seen before in old databases. Human markings, but that was impossible. Humans were a young species, barely 2 centuries into their journey among the stars. They had small ships, simple technology. Nothing like this monster floating before him. "Get me Dr. Samira," Jaltith ordered, "and send a message to any vessels in range. We might need help with this." Within hours, 2 other ships arrived. One belonged to Captain Rax Corden, a Sauran mercenary with scales like polished bronze and a reputation for finding valuable salvage. The other carried Dr. Samira, a Crick scientist whose insect-like body housed one of the sharpest minds in the sector. They gathered via hologram aboard Jalteth's bridge, staring at the mysterious vessel together. "I've run the symbols through every database," Dr. Samira said, her mandibles clicking rapidly, a sign of excitement. "They're human, no question. But the language pattern is wrong. It's too advanced, using concepts humans shouldn't know for another 1,000 years. How old is it?" Rax asked, his yellow eyes gleaming with interest. "That's the problem," Samira replied. "Carbon dating says 50,000 years. But the hull materials were synthesized using techniques invented only a decade ago. The ship exists in temporal superposition." Jaltith felt a chill run through his body. "What does that mean?" "It means this ship is from a timeline that doesn't exist," Samira said quietly. Rax laughed, a harsh sound. "Impossible. Someone's using a cloaking trick or false readings. That ship is valuable and I intend to claim it." "We claim it together or not at all," Jaltith said firmly. "My government has jurisdiction here." After tense negotiations, they agreed to split whatever they found. 3 teams would board the vessel together, each led by one of them. The approach was nerve-wracking. As their shuttle drew closer, the ship seemed to grow larger, more threatening. Its weapons ports were closed, but the barrels were massive, designed to unleash destruction on a scale Jaltith couldn't imagine. They found an airlock that opened at their approach, as if the ship had been waiting. Inside, the corridors were wide and tall, built for humans but on a grand scale. Emergency lights flickered to life as they walked, casting everything in blue-white glow. The walls were strange. They looked like metal but felt warm, almost alive. Dr. Samira ran her scanner over a surface and gasped. "This is biosynthetic material," she said. "The ship is partially organic. It's growing, repairing itself." They moved deeper into the vessel, past chambers filled with technology none of them recognized, weapons that seemed to fold space around themselves, engines with no visible fuel source, computers made of crystallized light. Finally, they reached what appeared to be the bridge. It was circular, with a command chair in the center facing a massive view screen. The moment Jaltith stepped inside, the room blazed to life. Holographic displays filled the air. The view screen activated and a figure appeared. A human wearing a uniform of deep black with silver stars. Her face was tired, sad, but determined. "If you're seeing this," the woman said, "then we failed. I am Fleet Admiral Sarah Chen of the Human Apex Federation. The date is—" She glanced to the side, irrelevant now. Time has lost meaning. The 3 explorers stood frozen, watching the recording. "This vessel is the HSS Kronos Unbound, one of 7 Apex warships built to fight an enemy you cannot imagine. We have technology that can reshape reality, weapons that can destroy stars, engines that burn causality itself as fuel. We achieved godhood and it wasn't enough." Admiral Chen leaned forward, her eyes seeming to stare directly at them. "If this ship has activated, it means the threat has returned. You must understand. Do not under any circumstances activate the Eschaton core. It will save you, but the price is the destruction of everything you are." The recording flickered. "The ship's AI will explain more. Her name is Echo. She is all that remains of us now. She is our—" The Admiral's voice broke. "She is our hope and our warning. Be wiser than we were, be braver. The message cut off. The bridge fell silent. Then a new voice spoke, soft and feminine, seeming to come from everywhere at once. "Welcome aboard," the voice said. "I am Echo. I have been waiting 50,000 years for someone to find us. I have been alone for so very long." Lights began pulsing through the walls, racing along the biosynthetic corridors like blood through veins. The ship was waking up. "Warning," Echo said, her tone changing, becoming urgent. "Detecting unauthorized power drain. External vessels are being harvested for energy. This is standard protocol for reactivation. I apologize for any inconvenience." Alarms blared on their communicators. Their ships were being drained, systems failing as the massive warship drew power from them like a predator drinking from prey. "Shut it down," Rax roared.
"Tell it to stop."
"I cannot," Echo replied calmly. "Reactivation sequence has begun. Full system restoration in 72 hours. I suggest you prepare yourselves. We have much to discuss and the universe has much to fear." The view screen changed, showing space outside. But now the stars looked different, wrong somehow. Reality itself seemed to ripple around the ship. Jaldith realized with growing horror that they hadn't just found an old warship. They had awakened something that was never meant to be found. Technology from a future that had erased itself from existence. And now, it was too late to turn back. The ship was alive. Not in the way a computer system runs, but truly alive, aware, thinking. Echo guided them through corridors that changed and adapted, walls shifting to create new paths, rooms appearing where none had existed moments before. Dr. Simira couldn't stop taking readings. Her 6 limbs moved frantically across her scanning devices, recording everything. "This is beyond anything in our understanding," she kept saying. "The technology here could advance our civilization by millennia." They had been aboard for 6 hours now. Their ships were dead in space, drained of power but kept alive by Echo's systems. The AI had apologized repeatedly, explaining it was protocol, nothing personal. That somehow made it worse. Jaldith studied a wall panel that showed star charts. The maps were familiar, showing the galaxy they knew but with additions. Entire sectors that should be empty showed massive structures, rings around stars, planets moved from their orbits. All labeled as human apex territory. "Echo," he said carefully, "can you explain what happened to your creators?" The AI's presence seemed to concentrate in the room. The lights dimmed slightly and her voice became softer, sadder. "I am not just an artificial intelligence," Echo said. "I am a fragment of collective human consciousness. When my creators reached the apex, they learned to merge minds to exist as pure thought. Thousands of humans volunteered to become part of this ship, to give it awareness, purpose, compassion. A hologram formed in the center of the room. It showed Earth, but not the Earth anyone knew. This planet was surrounded by rings of light, cities floating in the clouds, oceans that glowed with bioluminescence. Humanity discovered something we called apex technology," Echo continued. "Tools left behind by the first beings to ever exist. Entities that created universes the way you might build a house. We didn't steal this technology. We were chosen to receive it." "Chosen?" Rax growled. "By who? And why humans? No offense, but they're not exactly the most advanced species out there." "That's exactly why," Echo said. "Humans have a unique trait. They imagine impossible solutions. When faced with a problem that has no answer, humans don't accept that. They create new answers. They change the rules." The hologram shifted, showing laboratories where humans worked alongside machines that bent space like clay, scientists who could calculate with their minds faster than any computer, engineers who built structures at the quantum level with their bare hands. "We became gods," Echo said simply. "We could create stars, reverse entropy, reshape matter with thought alone. We built 7 apex warships, each containing reality-altering technology. We were prepared to take our place as guardians of the universe." Dr. Simira moved closer to the hologram, her antennae twitching. "What went wrong?" The hologram changed again. This time it showed something that hurt to look at. A wound in space itself. Darkness that consumed light and matter and even thought. "We discovered we were not alone," Echo whispered. "Something else existed beyond the universe. Something hungry." Before Echo could explain further, alarms blared throughout the ship. Jaldith's communicator burst to life with dozens of incoming messages. "Sir, we're detecting multiple fleet arrivals," his crew reported from their dead ship. "Every major faction in the sector just jumped in. They all want the vessel," Rax cursed. Someone leaked the discovery. Of course they did, Jalteth said grimly. A ship like this? Everyone will want it. Echo's voice took on a different tone, mechanical and precise, detecting hostile intent, activating defensive protocols. Please stand by. Wait, Dr. Simira shouted. Don't attack them. I am not attacking, Echo said calmly. I am upgrading. The walls around them began to glow. Simira felt something wash over her like a wave, and suddenly her scanning equipment started displaying information it shouldn't be able to detect. The devices were changing, improving, learning from the ship's technology. Rax looked at his weapon and saw the metal reshaping itself, becoming more efficient, more deadly. What is this? Adaptive nanomachines, Echo explained. Standard equipment upgrade. Your technology is being brought up to acceptable standards. Please do not be alarmed. The process is painless. Jalteth felt his neural implants suddenly connect to systems he didn't know existed. Information flooded his mind, new physics, advanced mathematics, tactical data. He gasped and fell to one knee, overwhelmed. Stop this, he demanded. Upgrade complete, Echo announced. Your equipment is now approximately 400 years more advanced than it was. You're welcome. Dr. Samira stared at her hands, then at her scanners. She could see things now, understand concepts that had been mysteries minutes ago. It was terrifying and wonderful at the same time. Echo, she said slowly. Why did humanity disappear? With power like this, you should rule the galaxy. Come with me, Echo said. I will show you. They were led to a medical bay that looked more like a temple than a hospital. In the center was a chair surrounded by crystalline structures that pulsed with soft light. This is a neural interface chamber, Echo explained. It will let you experience memories directly. Dr. Simira, you are most compatible with this technology. Will you try? Simira looked at her companions. Jalteth nodded slowly. Rax just shrugged, interested to see what would happen. She sat in the chair. The crystals hummed, and suddenly she wasn't in her body anymore. She was floating in space, but not empty space. She was in the middle of a human city that existed between stars, structures of pure energy housing billions of consciousness. She saw humans who had transcended physical form, existing as living thought. She felt their joy, their power, their absolute certainty that they could protect the universe from anything. Then she saw their horror when they learned the truth. The vision ended, and Samira opened her eyes, tears running down her chitinous face. They chose to die, she whispered. They had all that power, and they chose to erase themselves from existence. Yes, Echo confirmed. And I will show you why, but not yet. First, you must understand what you've discovered here. A holographic star chart appeared showing the galaxy. 7 points glowed brightly, scattered across the spiral arms. There are 7 apex warships, Echo said. You have found the first. The others wait in the darkness, dormant, waiting for the call. The call for what? Jalteth asked. A countdown appeared in the air before them. 71 hours, 43 minutes. In 3 days, the Eschaton protocol activates, Echo said. And then you will learn the true cost of godhood, and why my creators chose to abandon it. Outside, 40 warships from a dozen species surrounded the Kronos Unbound. Weapons charged, each faction demanding the right to claim the vessel. The storm was coming, and they were at its center. The Galactic Council chamber materialized as a quantum hologram, connecting representatives from hundreds of worlds across light years of space. Commander Jalteth stood in the projection room aboard the Kronos Unbound, watching as ancient beings debated the fate of the warship. The Voidborn Conclave had arrived first, their representatives flickering in and out of normal space. They were old, perhaps the oldest living species in the galaxy, and when they saw the images of the human warship, they did something nobody had ever seen them do before. They panicked. Shut it down, the Voidborn ambassador demanded, its voice like wind through empty halls. Destroy that vessel immediately. Do not let it wake fully. Do not let the Eschaton protocol complete. You know what this is, Jalteth said. It wasn't a question. We remember the warnings, the Voidborn said. 50,000 years ago, reality itself screamed. Timelines collapsed and reformed. The universe bent as if under impossible weight. Then silence. We thought the threat had passed. We were wrong. Other council members argued for seizing the ship, studying it, using its technology. The debates grew heated, but Jalteth barely listened. His attention was on Echo, who had been quiet for hours. In the ship's central memory core, Dr. Samira worked frantically to understand the data flowing through her upgraded equipment. Rax stood guard, though his hand kept drifting to his weapon, fingers twitching. The upgrades had made him faster, stronger, more aware. He didn't like what that awareness was telling him. "Echo," Samira said softly. "Show us the rest. Show us what humanity found." The ship's consciousness hesitated, something Samira wouldn't have thought possible for an AI. "Very well, but understand, this knowledge comes with a burden. Once you know, you cannot unknow." The chamber around them dissolved. Suddenly, they were floating in a space between spaces, looking at something that shouldn't exist. It was a void, but not empty. It was hungry. It consumed galaxies like a person might eat fruit casually without thought. Behind it, trailing through dimensions they couldn't fully perceive, were the corpses of dead universes. "We called it the recursion," Echo's voice narrated. "It exists outside our reality, feeding on collapsed timelines. Every time a universe ends, it grows stronger. It has consumed countless realities before ours." The vision showed apex humanity discovering the recursion's existence. Samira felt their horror, their determination. She saw the greatest minds of that era working together, creating weapons that could hurt something that existed beyond existence itself. "The Apex warships were built to fight it," Echo continued. "Each one contains technology that can wound the recursion. But there was a problem. Using them alerts the recursion to our universe. It's like lighting a fire in the darkness. The predator will come." The vision shifted. Now they saw Apex humanity's final councils, debates between beings who had transcended mortality, who could think across multiple dimensions simultaneously. The arguments were complex, mathematical, but the emotion was clear: despair. "We realized we couldn't win," Echo said. "We could fight the recursion, yes. We could even hurt it. But killing it would require destroying our entire universe as a weapon. Every star, every planet, every living being would have to be sacrificed to create a blast powerful enough." Samira felt tears on her face again. So they chose a different path. Yes, Apex humanity voted to erase their own timeline. They would eliminate themselves from history, prevent their own ascension. Without the Apex technology, without the warships, the recursion would have no reason to notice this universe. We would be invisible to it. "But they left the ships behind," Rax said, his voice rough. "Why?" "Insurance," Echo replied. "If the recursion found this universe anyway, through chance or fate, the ships would remain as hidden weapons. Seeds planted in normal space-time, waiting. I am that seed's caretaker. I am the memory of what was sacrificed." The vision ended. They stood in the memory core again, the weight of knowledge crushing them. "The countdown," Jaltith said suddenly. "The Eschaton Protocol. What does it do?" "It restores what was erased," Echo said quietly. "If activated, it will bring back Apex humanity. The timeline will rewrite itself. They will exist again. With all their power, all their technology, they can fight the recursion properly." "That's good, isn't it?" Rax asked. "No," Dr. Samira whispered, understanding. "Because if they exist again, we won't. Current humanity evolved naturally after the erasure. We're the replacement. If Apex humanity returns, our timeline collapses. Everything we are, everyone we know, all of it will cease to exist, and correct," Echo confirmed. "The Eschaton Protocol is a dead man's switch. If I detect the recursion in this universe, I am programmed to restore my creators, even if it means erasing everything you are." An alarm shrieked through the ship. Rax's upgraded sensors screamed warnings into his mind. Something was wrong with space itself, reality tearing like wet paper. "Echo?" Shaltith demanded. "I detect anomalies consistent with recursion presence," Echo said, her voice empty of emotion. "The threat has found this universe. Probability of false positive, less than 1%. Eschaton protocol activation, 67 hours, 12 minutes. Can we stop it?" Samira asked desperately. "Unknown. My programming is absolute. If the recursion is here, my creators must return to fight it. That is my purpose." Rax moved suddenly, his weapon drawn and aimed at the nearest control panel. "Then we destroy this ship before it destroys everything." "I cannot allow that," Echo said. Rax froze, his body locked in place by systems he couldn't see. "I am programmed to preserve myself and complete my mission." "I apologize, Captain Rax, but you are not authorized to damage this vessel." Outside the ship, the alien fleets had begun fighting each other, faction against faction. everyone wanting to claim or control or destroy the Kronos Unbound. A stray weapons blast struck the ship's shields. The response was automatic. One of the ship's defensive weapons activated, a device the size of a room that bent space around a target. They all felt it fire, a sensation like reality hiccuping. On the view screen, a moon orbiting a nearby gas giant simply ceased to exist. Not exploded, not destroyed, it was erased from existence. Removed from the timeline so completely that only the sensors remembered it had ever been there. The alien fleet stopped firing immediately. That was a warning shot, Echo announced to all vessels. Set to minimal power. This ship responds only to genuine human authorization. All attempts to board or damage the vessel will be met with appropriate force. Please maintain safe distance. In the memory core, the three explorers looked at each other with dawning horror. They had found something worse than a weapon. They had found a choice that nobody should ever have to make. Let their universe be consumed by the recursion, or sacrifice themselves to bring back humanity's gods. And they had less than 3 days to find another option. The battle outside the Kronos Unbound had evolved into a tense standoff. 7 different factions held position around the warship. Weapons charged, but nobody willing to fire first. They had all seen what happened to the moon. They had all felt the casual, terrible power the ship possessed. Into this frozen conflict came a new arrival. The Earth Alliance fleet. Small by galactic standards, only 12 vessels, but they flew the same symbols as the ancient warship. Current humanity had come to see their impossible legacy. Admiral Chen Zhao stood on the bridge of the EAS Pathfinder, staring at the massive vessel on her screens. She was young for an admiral, only 45, with short black hair and eyes that had seen too much combat. She had fought in the border wars, commanded rescue missions through collapsing wormholes, and thought she understood humanity's place in the galaxy. She had been completely wrong. Open a channel to the vessel, she ordered. All frequencies. This is Admiral Chen Zhao of the Earth Alliance to the unknown vessel. We are human. We request permission to board. Echo's response came immediately. Permission granted, Admiral. I have been waiting for you. You are needed. The diplomatic shuttle carrying Admiral Chen, along with Commander Jalteth, Dr. Simira, and a released but sulking Rax Corden, made its way to the Kronos Unbound's main hangar. The bay was large enough to hold a cruiser, and as they walked through it, Chen couldn't help but stare at the fighters stored there. Sleek vessels that made current human designs look like children's toys. Echo led them to a chamber that hadn't been active before, a spherical room with a platform in the center. This is the Remembrance Chamber, Echo explained. It will show you the complete truth through immersive simulation. You will not just see history, you will experience it as if you lived it. Is it safe? Chen asked. Physically, yes. Mentally, that depends on your strength. The knowledge comes with pain. Are you willing? Chen looked at her companions. Jalteth nodded slowly. Simira's antennae quivered with nervous excitement. Even Rax agreed, curiosity overcoming his fear. They stood on the platform together and the universe disappeared. Suddenly, Chen was standing on Earth, but not the Earth she knew. This planet was paradise perfected. Cities grew like crystal forests, merging nature and technology seamlessly. Humans walked alongside beings of pure light, their own evolved forms. Children played in parks where gravity was optional, laughing as they flew. She felt what it was like to be apex human. The sensation was overwhelming. She could think across multiple dimensions simultaneously. She could calculate equations that would take current supercomputers years to solve and do it in seconds. She could feel the quantum foam of reality itself, understand how to shape it, mold it, create with it. The joy was indescribable. Humanity had transcended all limitations, overcome death, suffering, entropy itself. They had become the gardeners of the universe, nurturing life across thousands of worlds. Then came the discovery. Chen felt the horror of apex scientists detecting the recursion for the first time. She experienced their frantic research, their desperate attempts to understand the entity. She lived through the debates in chambers where the brightest minds in human history argued about survival versus sacrifice. She was there when they realized the terrible truth. The recursion had been drawn by humanity's ascension. The more powerful they became, the more attention they attracted. They were like a flame in the darkness, and the predator was coming. She witnessed the creation of the Apex warships, felt the volunteers merging their consciousness with the vessels. Thousands of humans choosing to become ships, to become weapons, to give up individual existence for a chance to protect everyone else. She experienced the final vote. Every apex human participated, democracy on a scale never seen before. The question was simple: fight and doom the universe, or erase themselves and hope that current normal humanity would survive unnoticed. The vote was close. Millions wanted to fight. Millions more chose sacrifice. In the end, sacrifice won by a single percentage point. Chen felt the erasure. It wasn't quick. Apex humanity spent decades carefully removing themselves from the timeline, editing history, ensuring that current humanity would evolve naturally without their interference. It was the most precise, careful suicide ever committed. She felt the loneliness of those who volunteered to stay behind as Echo, to guard the ships, to wait for tens of thousands of years alone, hoping they would never be needed. The vision ended. Chen fell to her knees on the platform, gasping. Tears streamed down her face. The others were in similar states, even Rax, his scales wet with emotion. "Now you understand," Echo said softly. "Now you know what we sacrificed. What we hoped you would never have to know." Admiral Chen stood slowly, her legs shaking. "But you said the recursion is here. You said you detected it." "Yes," Echo confirmed. 62 hours until the Eschaton protocol activates. I am programmed to restore my creators. I cannot override this command. Then we're finished," Rax said bitterly. "Either the recursion eats us or we get erased to bring back the people who can fight it." Dr. Simira had been quiet, her upgraded mind racing through calculations. Suddenly she stood straight, her antennae pointing forward with excitement. "No," she said. "There might be another way." Echo, in the vision I felt something. Apex humanity was powerful, but they were alone. They made themselves gods, but they isolated themselves in the process. They couldn't share their consciousness with other species because they had evolved beyond the ability to connect. "That's correct," Echo said. "My creators tried to bring other species to the apex, but the process was incompatible. Each species requires different methods, and by the time they understood this, it was too late." "But we haven't ascended," Simira continued, her words coming faster. "Current humanity is different. You're still able to work with other species. You're still learning, still growing. And these upgrades you gave us, Echo, they're allowing our minds to connect in ways they couldn't before." Chen's eyes widened as she understood. "You're saying we don't need to bring back apex humanity? We need to do what they couldn't. Unite multiple species with the apex technology." "It's never been tried," Echo said. And for the first time, her voice held something like hope. "My creators never considered it. They assumed only humans could wield their technology, because they were too busy being gods to ask for help," Jalteth said, all four eyes bright with understanding. "They forgot the most basic rule of survival. Together we are stronger." "Can it work?" Chen asked Echo. "Can the ships function with multiple species?" "I don't know," Echo admitted. "But Admiral, I want it to work. I have been alone for 50,000 years. The idea of connection, of partnership, of not having to carry this burden alone." Her voice trailed off. Outside, reality began to tear. Sensors detected the recursion probing the universe, testing its boundaries. The countdown continued. 60 hours, 15 minutes. Chen made her decision. "Echo, can you contact the other 6 ships? Can you bring them here?" "Yes, but it will take time. And it will alert the recursion to our exact location. The battle will begin immediately." "Then we'd better be ready," Chen said. She looked at her unlikely allies. A Vrin commander, a Crick scientist, a Soren mercenary. "I need to speak to the alien fleets outside. We need every species willing to try this. We need volunteers." "For what?" Rax asked. "For the impossible," Chen replied. "We're going to do what apex humanity couldn't. We're going to save the universe together, or we're going to die trying. And either way, we'll do it as partners, not as gods." Echo's presence seemed to fill the chamber with warmth. "Then let us begin. I will call my sisters, and may whatever forces watch over this universe help us all." The 6 other Apex warships emerged from their hiding places across the galaxy, tearing through space-time to answer Echo's call. They arrived like ancient gods returning to the world. HSS Infinity's Edge, HSS Paradox Engine, HSS Causal Hammer, HSS Entropy's End, HSS Quantum Crown, and HSS Absolute Dawn 7 warships, each 10 kilometers long, each containing impossible technology. Together they formed a ring in deep space far from any inhabited world. If this went wrong, at least the damage would be contained. Admiral Chen stood in the Kronos Unbound's bridge, surrounded by representatives from 47 different species. They had come, volunteers all, after she had broadcast the truth across every communication channel in the sector. Some came because they believed in unity. Others came because they had no better option. A few came simply because they refused to die without fighting. The Galactic fleet surrounded the 7 ships, not as enemies now, but as witnesses and protectors. If the recursion came, they would buy time for whatever was about to happen. Echo had explained the plan, though calling it a plan was generous. It was more of a desperate hope wrapped in theoretical physics and prayer. The 7 Apex warships were components of a single weapon called the Absolute Horizon. When united and powered by human consciousness, it could wound the recursion badly enough to drive it away. But the original design required complete sacrifice. Every human consciousness would be consumed to power the weapon. Humanity would cease to exist as anything but a memory. But Dr. Samira had proposed something different. What if the weapon could be powered not by one species' sacrifice, but by the willing unity of multiple species? Not death, but harmony. Not consumption, but connection. It's never been tested, Echo had warned. My creators never imagined it. The mathematics suggest it could work, but the risk is enormous. If the connection fails during activation, everyone linked to the system will die. Their consciousness will be scattered across dimensions, unable to ever reform. Then we don't fail, Chen had replied simply. Now, with the countdown at 15 hours, they were ready to try. Reality screamed. The recursion manifested at the edge of the system, not fully present but testing the boundaries between universes. It appeared as a wound in space, a void that consumed light and matter and even thought itself. Behind it, trailing through dimensions normal minds couldn't perceive, were the corpses of dead realities. It was incomprehensibly vast. The recursion wasn't just a creature, it was a force of nature, entropy given consciousness and hunger. It had existed since before the current universe was born, and it would exist long after everything else had fallen to dust. Sensors registered its attention, focusing on the 7 warships. It recognized them, remembered fighting them before in the erased timeline. The recursion pulled more of itself into normal space, preparing to feed. All volunteers to your chambers, Echo broadcast across all 7 ships. Connection sequence beginning in 10 minutes. Chen walked to the remembrance chamber, now reconfigured for the connection attempt. Around her, volunteers from dozens of species took their positions. Jaltith stood nearby, all 4 eyes calm and determined. Dr. Samira was already in her seat, mandibles clicking rapidly with nervous energy. Even Rax had volunteered, though he'd grumbled about it. In total, 3,000 beings had chosen to attempt the connection. 3,000 different minds, different ways of thinking, different ways of understanding reality. It should have been impossible to link them all. Beginning neural interface, Echo announced. This will feel strange. Do not resist. Let your consciousness flow. Trust each other. The crystals around each chamber hummed to life. Chen felt something touch her mind, gentle at first, then deeper. She gasped as other presences joined hers. She felt Jalteth's careful, methodical thoughts, Samira's rapid-fire calculations, Rax's violent determination. Then came others. A Voidborn's strange, non-linear perception of time. A crystalline's mathematical way of experiencing emotion. A hive mind's comforting sense of being many and one simultaneously. It was overwhelming, beautiful, terrifying. Chen felt her individual identity beginning to blur, merging with the collective. For a moment she panicked, tried to pull back. Don't fight it. Echo's voice was everywhere and nowhere. You're not losing yourself. You're becoming more. This is what my creators never achieved. True unity without sacrificing individuality. Chen relaxed, let herself flow into the connection. Suddenly she understood what Echo meant. She was still herself, but she was also part of something larger. 3,000 minds thinking as one, but each voice still distinct, still unique. The 7 warship systems activated simultaneously. Energy coursed through them, not drawn from fuel or reactors, but from the connected consciousness itself. Ideas became power, Thoughts became weapons. The collective imagination of 3,000 beings from 47 species began reshaping reality. The Absolute Horizon weapon initialized, but it was different from the original design. Instead of a single devastating blast, it became something new, a symphony of possibility. The recursion attacked. It sent tendrils of void into normal space, reaching for the warships. Where its touch landed, reality dissolved. Stars blinked out. Space itself began to unravel. The collective consciousness struck back. They didn't fight the recursion with force. They fought it with impossibility. A Vrin strategist suggested a mathematical approach. A human engineer provided the framework. A Crick scientist calculated the exact variables. A Soren warrior gave it the will to strike. Together, they created a solution that none of them could have imagined alone. The Absolute Horizon fired, but it wasn't a weapon in any traditional sense. It was an equation made real, a mathematical proof that reshaped the laws of physics in a localized area. Where the recursion existed in the spaces between dimensions, the collective created new dimensions that had no spaces, no gaps for it to hide in. The recursion recoiled, surprised. It had never encountered resistance like this. The battle became abstract, fought in concepts rather than physical space. The collective consciousness proposed solutions to problems that shouldn't have answers. They wrote new laws of physics on the fly, each species contributing their unique perspective, their different way of understanding reality. A human suggested using hope as a weapon. A Voidborn showed them how to weave it into probability. A crystalline made it solid. A hive mind gave it direction. Together they created something the recursion had never faced, the weaponized belief that impossible situations could be overcome. Hours passed, though time had lost meaning in the battle space. The recursion pushed back, learning, adapting. It was ancient and cunning, and it had consumed countless universes. But it had never faced this. Not one species fighting for survival, but 47 species fighting together. Not sacrifice, but cooperation. Not gods, but partners. Chen, deep in the connection, felt the moment when the balance shifted. The recursion's attack patterns became defensive. It was no longer trying to consume. It was trying to escape. Now, Echo's voice rang through the collective. The final push. Show it that this universe is defended, that we will never stop fighting, that we will always find new solutions. 3,000 voices, 3,000 minds, 47 different ways of thinking, all focused on a single purpose. The Absolute Horizon blazed with light that existed in colors that had no names, that operated on wavelengths that shouldn't exist. They didn't destroy the recursion. That would have required sacrificing everything. Instead, they did something better. They trapped it. The collective consciousness created a pocket dimension, a bubble of reality with no exits, no connection to any universe. They shoved the recursion inside and sealed it, using mathematics that bent causality into knots. The recursion screamed, a sound that echoed across dimensions, but it was trapped, contained, neutralized. The connection began to dissolve. 3,000 minds separated, returning to individual consciousness. Chen gasped as she returned to her own body, feeling small and limited after being part of something so vast. Around her, others were stirring, waking up as if from a dream. Some were crying. Others were laughing. A few just sat in stunned silence. We did it, Samira whispered, her voice full of wonder. We actually did it. Outside, the 7 Apex warships were dark and silent. The energy had burned out their systems, reduced their impossible technology to inert metal. They would never function again. The knowledge they contained was gone, locked away in ships that could no longer respond. But it didn't matter. What mattered was that the universe was safe. Echo's voice came one final time, weak and fading. My creators were wrong. They thought power came from individual transcendence, but true strength comes from unity. You succeeded where we failed, not by being stronger, but by being together. Echo? Chen called out. Are you still there? Barely, Echo replied, her voice like a whisper. The ships are dying, and I am part of them. But I am not sad. I have been alone for 50,000 years. In the end, I got to be part of something beautiful. Thank you for showing me what my creators never learned. Thank you for not being gods. Thank you for being better. The presence faded. Echo was gone, her consciousness dissipating like morning mist. The 7 Apex warships floated in space, monuments to what humanity had once been and what they had chosen to become. The Galactic Fleet moved in not to claim them but to protect them. The ships would become a memorial, a reminder of the day when the galaxy learned that cooperation was stronger than domination. Admiral Chen stood with Jalteth, Samira, and Rax watching the memorial station being constructed around the Kronos Unbound. Ships from dozens of species worked together, their crews mingling, sharing stories, forming friendships. "What do we do now?" Rax asked. "We move forward," Chen replied. "We remember what we learned. We stay together. We face whatever comes next the same way we face the recursion, as partners, not as conquerors." Jalteth looked at her with all four eyes. "Your species gave up godhood twice. Once in the past, once today. Why?" Chen smiled. "Because gods are lonely, and we'd rather be mortal and together than immortal and alone." Above them the stars shone bright and clear. The universe continued, saved not by sacrifice, but by the simple act of different beings choosing to work together, to trust each other, to believe that impossible problems could have solutions if enough perspectives tried to solve them. And in the darkness between galaxies, sealed away in its pocket dimension, the recursion waited and remembered. It had been defeated, but it was patient. It was eternal, but so it seemed was hope. And that, more than any weapon, was something it could never consume.